When a woman truly takes ownership of her body and her desires, it marks a profound shift. Not just in her personal life, but in the way the world sees her. For far too long, society has told women what to feel, how to act, and who they should be when it comes to their bodies and sexuality. From a young age, girls are taught to be modest, to be careful, to shrink themselves in the face of male attention, and to carry shame around their natural instincts. Desire for women has often been policed, judged, or ignored entirely. But when a woman breaks free from those narratives, when she looks at herself in the mirror and says, "This is my body, and I have every right to feel what I feel," that's where real power begins. Owning one's body is not about how it looks, but about how it's lived in. It's not about perfection, but presence. It's in the way a woman walks into a room without apology. It's in how she dresses, not to please someone else, but to express herself. It's in her ability to say yes when she wants something, and more importantly, to say no when she doesn't. Ownership is about choice. It's about autonomy. It's about reclaiming control over something that has too often been controlled by others, advertisers, partners, the media, or even family traditions. And when we talk about desire, let's be honest. It's not just physical. Desire is energy. It's emotional, spiritual, mental. A woman who owns her desire knows what excites her. She knows what makes her feel alive. That could be the touch of a lover, the thrill of a new idea, or the quiet fire that comes from chasing a dream. Owning desire means not waiting for someone else to give you permission to feel good. It means not waiting for validation. It's the realization that pleasure isn't something to be earned. It's something you already deserve simply because you exist. In a world that still tries to shame women for being too much, too loud, too emotional, or too sexual, it takes courage to claim that space. But the moment a woman says, "I will not apologize for my body or my feelings," she becomes a force of nature. She stops looking outward for answers and starts trusting her inner voice. That voice might say, "I want more intimacy," or "I don't want to be touched right now," or "I deserve to feel this good." And that voice, when honored, is sacred. This kind of ownership is not just empowering for the woman herself. It changes relationships too. A woman who owns her body and desires teaches others how to treat her. She doesn't settle for half-hearted love. She doesn't stay silent to avoid conflict. She brings her full self into every connection, vulnerable, passionate, present, and in doing so, she inspires her partners to do the same. Real intimacy isn't possible without self-ownership. You cannot share what you're ashamed of. You cannot be fully loved if you are hiding parts of who you are. So when a woman says, "This is who I am, this is what I want," she invites honesty, depth, and mutual respect. Of course, ownership is not a destination, it's a practice. There are days of doubt, days of silence, days of old habits creeping back in. But every time a woman chooses herself, whether by setting a boundary, exploring her pleasure, or simply standing in front of the mirror and admiring her own skin, she builds that muscle. She strengthens the connection between her body and her soul. And eventually, what once felt uncomfortable becomes second nature. She becomes fluent in her own language of desire. This shift also has a ripple effect. When one woman takes ownership of her body and desires, she gives silent permission for others to do the same. She challenges the norms. She changes the culture. Whether it's a younger sister watching, a friend opening up for the first time, or a stranger who feels seen, this kind of self-possession spreads, it liberates, it uplifts, it heals. The truth is, women's bodies have been politicized, commodified, sexualized, and censored for centuries. But none of that can touch the quiet revolution that happens the moment a woman decides she is her own. Not owned by society, not defined by roles, not reduced to labels. Just herself, fully embodied, fully feeling, fully free. So when a woman is sexually turned on and she takes ownership of that feeling, it is not weakness, it is strength. It is not shameful, it is sacred. It is not just about sex, it is about wholeness. And that kind of wholeness, it is unstoppable. It is unstoppable. Would you like the next key point expanded in a similar way? When a woman is sexually turned on and in tune with herself, one of the most powerful things that happens is that she begins to communicate more openly. This is not just about words, it's about energy, expression, honesty, and presence. So often, women are taught to keep their true thoughts and feelings hidden. especially when it comes to desire or intimacy. They are told to be polite, to be accommodating, to not come across as too forward or too much. But when desire awakens, those walls begin to fall away. The voice that may have once whispered starts to speak up. And with that, a whole new level of connection, first with herself and then with others, emerges. Open communication in this context is a sign of deep self-awareness. A woman who is in touch with what turns her on begins to ask herself real questions. What do I want? What feels good to me? What do I need to feel safe, seen, and satisfied? And as those answers come, she finds the courage to articulate them, not just in moments of intimacy, but in all areas of her life. She becomes more comfortable saying things like, I like this, I need that, or that doesn't feel right for me. There is no shame in these expressions. In fact, they become essential to how she navigates her relationships and her world. This kind of open communication is revolutionary because it shifts the power dynamic. Instead of being passive or reactive, she becomes an active participant in her pleasure and her life. She doesn't wait for someone else to guess or assume what she wants. She tells them. And that honesty leads to clarity, to deeper trust, and to more meaningful experiences. Whether she's telling a partner what she enjoys in bed, or she's opening up about emotional needs, or even setting a boundary, it all comes from the same place. Self-respect and self-connection. What's beautiful about this transformation is that it's not aggressive, it's empowered. A woman who communicates from a place of self-awareness doesn't demand attention or force outcomes. She simply knows herself, and that knowledge gives her a quiet confidence. That confidence is magnetic. People listen more closely when someone speaks with truth. And when she expresses her needs without apology, she teaches others that it's okay to do the same. In this way, her open communication becomes an invitation, an opening for real intimacy, for honesty, for mutual respect. Being sexually turned on isn't just about arousal, it's about aliveness. And that aliveness fuels clarity. It's as if the filters fall away and suddenly she no longer wants to pretend. She doesn't want to perform or fit into anyone's expectations. She wants real touch, real connection, real conversation. She becomes more direct, not because she's trying to control, but because she finally values her own voice. That voice might say, I need more time, or I love when you do that, or even, I'm scared, but I want to explore this. All of those are acts of courage. All of those are expressions of truth. And that truth isn't always about pleasure. Sometimes it's about pain. Sometimes it's about past experiences, insecurities, or fears. A woman who is open with her body becomes more open with her heart, too. She might share things she's never said out loud before. She might reveal layers of herself that were buried under silence. And in doing so, she creates space for healing. Not just for herself, but for anyone lucky enough to listen. This level of openness isn't something that comes overnight, it's a process. It takes practice, vulnerability, and a willingness to be seen. There might be moments of doubt, of backtracking, of questioning whether it's too much to ask for what she wants. But each time she chooses honesty over hiding, she builds a stronger relationship with herself. And that relationship becomes the foundation for everything else. Because when a woman knows how to speak her truth, she also knows how to hear it in others. She becomes a better listener, a better lover, a better friend. There's also a quiet rebellion in this kind of openness. It defies a culture that has for generations told women to be silent about sex, to be ashamed of their desires, to be passive recipients rather than active participants. So when a woman chooses to speak, to truly unapologetically express herself, it is an act of liberation. She reclaims her narrative, she rewrites the rules, and she sets a new standard for communication. One rooted not in control or performance, but in truth and connection. Ultimately, when a woman is sexually turned on and emotionally in tune, her voice becomes one of her most powerful tools. Not just for pleasure, but for life. She uses it to build intimacy, to set boundaries, to ask for what she needs, and to stand in her truth. And the more she speaks from that place, the more her world begins to reflect her inner power. It's not just that she communicates more openly, it's that her entire life begins to align with the truth she's finally free to express. Would you like the third point? She becomes magnetic, expanded in the same way. When a woman is sexually turned on and in deep connection with herself, something extraordinary begins to happen. She becomes magnetic. This magnetism isn't about how she looks, what she wears, or how much attention she seeks. It's not the curated kind of beauty seen in magazines or on social media. This is something deeper, more primal, and undeniably powerful. It's the kind of energy that draws people in without a word, that fills a room before she even speaks. It's the quiet confidence that radiates from a woman who knows who she is, what she wants, and is unapologetic about it. Magnetism, in this sense, comes from a sense of embodiment. When a woman is turned on, not just sexually, but energetically, she lives inside her body rather than outside of it. She's not observing herself from the lens of how others see her. She's feeling everything from the inside out. Every step she takes, every gesture, every glance carries the charge of authenticity. She's not trying to impress anyone. She's simply aligned with herself. And that alignment is what people feel. That's what pulls them toward her, like gravity. What makes this energy so captivating is that it's effortless. A magnetic woman doesn't chase attention. She receives it. Not because she's loud or flashy, but because her presence speaks for her. People are naturally curious about her. They want to know what she's thinking, what she's feeling, what her story is. Her magnetism sparks intrigue, not because she's putting on a show, but because she's turned on by her own life. Her energy is alive, electric, undeniable. There's a certain freedom in the state of being. A woman who is lit up from within no longer seeks approval. She's not performing femininity, she's embodying it. She's not trying to be sexy, she simply is. Her sensuality is not a tool for manipulation, it's an expression of her truth. She doesn't walk into a room wondering if people will like her. She walks in already liking herself, and that self-assurance is intoxicating. People want to be around someone who is at ease in their own skin, who radiates joy and self-trust. This magnetic energy also has a grounding quality. It's not just about excitement or intensity, it's about presence. When a woman is truly present with herself, she becomes more present with everyone around her. She listens more deeply, she engages more fully. She sees people, and in turn, she is seen. There's nothing more magnetic than someone who makes you feel like you matter. And a turned-on woman, fully embodied and connected, does that without effort, because she is not distracted by self-doubt or insecurity. She is here, fully. And that's rare. That's unforgettable. What's important to understand is that this magnetism is not about being constantly sexual or seductive. It's about being turned on by life. That might mean she's passionately pursuing her work, creating art, dancing in her living room, laughing with friends, or enjoying a quiet moment with herself. Her glow comes from being connected to what she loves. That connection becomes a signal, a frequency that others can feel. And those who are aligned with her energy will be naturally drawn to her, not just physically, but emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. Magnetic women also have strong boundaries. Because they know their worth, they don't settle for less. They're not afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't serve them. And paradoxically, that ability to say no makes their yes even more powerful. They're not available to everyone, and that makes their presence even more special. People respect those who respect themselves. And self-respect is one of the most attractive qualities a person can have. There's also an element of mystery to this kind of woman. Not because she's hiding anything, but because she's layered. She doesn't give everything away at once. She unfolds. And that unfolding is a journey, not just for those who get to know her, but for herself as well. She's constantly discovering new dimensions of her own power, pleasure, and purpose. And that sense of curiosity, that ever-expanding self-awareness, adds depth to her energy. She's not stagnant. She's evolving. And that evolution is magnetic. In relationships, this magnetism translates to deeper intimacy. Her partners don't just feel attraction, they feel connection, they feel safe to be themselves. A magnetic woman creates space for others to show up authentically, because she's already doing that herself. She doesn't play games, she invites truth, and in doing so, she builds bonds that are not only passionate but profound. Ultimately, this kind of magnetism isn't something you chase or force. It's something you cultivate by coming home to yourself, by honoring your body, listening to your desires, and moving through the world with presence and intention. When a woman is sexually turned on and fully in her power, she doesn't need to convince anyone of her worth. Her energy speaks louder than words. She becomes a beacon, radiating strength, sensuality, and soul. That is the kind of magnetism that doesn't fade. That is the kind of woman people remember. Would you like me to expand the final key point? She chooses, she doesn't settle, in the same tone and length. When a woman is sexually turned on and fully in alignment with her inner self, one of the most profound shifts that takes place is in her standards. She chooses and she doesn't settle. This transformation isn't about arrogance or entitlement. It's about clarity, self-worth, and the refusal to compromise on what truly matters. Desire awakens discernment. It reveals what lights her up, what drains her, what feels expansive, and what feels small. And once a woman knows how good it feels to be deeply connected to herself, she simply cannot unknow it. She cannot go back to half-hearted love, unfulfilling connection, or living a life that feels dimmed. In this space, choosing becomes an act of self-respect. She no longer seeks external validation. She's not waiting to be picked or hoping someone finally sees her. She's already chosen herself. And from that place of deep inner knowing, she becomes highly selective about what and who gets access to her time, her body, her energy, and her heart. Her decisions are no longer driven by fear of being alone or the pressure to conform. Instead, they are guided by intuition, integrity, and the fierce understanding that settling is the slow death of her aliveness. She knows that chemistry without emotional safety isn't enough, that attention without genuine connection is hollow, that promises without consistency are meaningless. She doesn't fall for charm that lacks depth or intensity that comes without commitment. She may have accepted those things once, before she woke up to her own value, but now she sees through it all. She listens to how her body responds. She watches how people show up. She notices how she feels after spending time with someone, drained or energized, small or expansive, anxious or at peace. Her body is now the compass, and it doesn't lie. This woman is not waiting for someone to complete her. She is already whole. What she wants is partnership, not dependency. She seeks connection that honors her complexity, her desires, her brilliance. She wants passion, yes, but also presence. She wants depth, not just sparks. And because she is willing to be alone rather than settle, she raises the bar, not just in romance, but in every area of her life. She chooses friends who see her, who challenge her, who celebrate her evolution. She chooses work that excites her, not just what pays the bills. She chooses pleasure over pressure, peace over performance. She is done performing to fit into roles that no longer serve her. She doesn't shapeshift to be more digestible. She doesn't water herself down to be liked. She knows that being too much for some people is a sign that those people are not meant for her. This refusal to settle also shows up in how she handles boundaries. She doesn't entertain inconsistent behavior. She doesn't chase people who are emotionally unavailable. She doesn't justify red flags. If someone shows her who they are, she believes them. Not because she's cold, but because she has learned that her energy is sacred. She knows the cost of ignoring her inner voice, and she's not willing to pay that price anymore. Saying no to the wrong thing is her way of making space for what's right. There is immense power in this kind of choosing. It's not loud or dramatic, it's steady, grounded, and unwavering. It's the strength to walk away from situations that no longer feel aligned. It's the grace to end a connection with love rather than clinging out of fear. It's the confidence to say, this doesn't meet me where I am, and that's okay, but I won't stay here. This level of self-honoring creates freedom. She is no longer trapped in cycles of trying to fix, change, or prove. She lets things go when they are done. She trusts that what is meant for her will feel mutual, intentional, and deeply nourishing. The beauty of this kind of woman is that her standards aren't about perfection. They're about alignment. She's not looking for someone flawless. She's looking for someone real. Someone who is willing to meet her with honesty, who is willing to do the work, who can hold space for her fire and her softness. And because she leads with that level of authenticity, she naturally attracts people who are ready for that same level of depth. She also knows that choosing isn't always easy. It can be lonely. It can mean letting go of something that felt familiar but wasn't fulfilling. It can mean turning inward when the world tells you to settle down. But she doesn't fear the loneliness because she has learned to find companionship within herself. She doesn't confuse being alone with being unloved. She has become her own home. In the end, this woman understands that life is too short and too sacred to spend it in spaces that don't feel alive. She chooses with intention, with love, and with trust in the unfolding. And because she no longer settles, her life becomes a reflection of her truth, rich, expansive, and deeply aligned. Would you like all 4 points combined into a single, flowing speech for performance or publication?